The truth is out there. It's sure taking its sweet time to find us. NASA has announced it will conduct its own UFO investigations after the recent Pentagon hearings on UFO sightings fizzled. The new inquiry will take 9 months to complete. It's only going to cost $100 grand. How is that? With a meager budget, what will NASA see that the Pentagon hasn't? Joining me to discuss, Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies board member and UAP research legend, Alejandro Rojas. Welcome back, Alejandro.
Thank you. Good to be back.
So my first question is, NASA hasn't been studying UAPs? How is that? I just assumed NASA would be looking into space for flying things.
It's a great point that you make. Why haven't they been doing this? You know, this has been a thing for decades now. In fact, President Carter had a UFO sighting, and he said if he gets president, he will ask NASA to do it. He did in 1977, and they essentially said, thank you, but no thank you. They kind of think of it as a losing situation. So, you know, for the UFO believers, they're never going to be happy till you show them an alien body. For the scientific community, they're not going to be happy that you're touching this topic at all because it's just not seen as credible often.
Yeah, and that's what NASA has said. They're like, you know, we're getting a lot of skepticism and pushback. We're not supposed to look into these things. They are supposed to. You know, scientifically and skeptically, that's how we want government bodies to approach these things. So how will NASA's approach be different than the Pentagon? Is the Pentagon just about national security?
That's a great point. That's exactly correct. So Pentagon's about national security, and they're looking for threats for our military or to the nation as a whole. The issue with that is that's, of course, much, much more secretive. So the idea of us possibly getting some information or for a scientific organization to get data that we can actually work on from the military is pretty low. That's what's exciting about NASA getting into this. What they're going to spend this $100,000 on is just kind of to see who knows what, who's got what, what's going on in this whole thing. And then they want to do a scientific study, which is what we want to see as well. So that's more exciting because if things work correctly, if they do make some discoveries, the public will find that out, hopefully sooner rather than later.
What do you think NASA could discover?
It's, you know, who knows? One of the big questions is, you know, are they catching these things on satellites leaving the atmosphere? That's a really big deal because when it comes to propulsion, you know, you take a lot of things off the table when you see something cruising around in space.
Yes, and when it comes to propulsion, we are very limited with what we can see from Earth. And there are a lot of ways to explain away, including illusions and technology that we're just not privy to yet, that one of our adversaries might have. But that's actually a really interesting thought because, you know, considering the apparatus that we have, you know, especially not just with visual telescopes to be able to see what is entering and leaving our atmosphere. But again, it makes me wonder, how come NASA hasn't been interested in this before? They've got access to so much incredible, quickly evolving technology. Did this just not occur to them? Is this really such a pariah in the scientific community?
It is, and that's what's shocking. This has been such a big taboo that NASA's been too afraid to look at this. And the military also has kind of put their head in the sand in important situations. So, for instance, they showed a UAP video at the hearings, and with a bunch of objects over a Navy ship, and then they said, oh, this turned out to be drones. What drones, you know? And then we've got a report that came out recently that drone situation could have been a drone testing or an attack from Hong Kong.
Yes.
So drones is kind of an area where they get labeled as UAP and then we ignore them. And it shows just how dangerous it is to ignore things we can't figure out.
Yes, we should be looking for the explanation, even if it's momentarily beyond our grasp or if it is truly inconvenient. The good news about this NASA study is it will be open. They're not going to use classified military information. They're going to use what is knowable and invite other researchers to take a look at it, to add to it when necessary, and come up with a much more comprehensive answer than we've had so far. So I'm all for it. Are you excited about it, Alejandro?
I'm very excited. I think the scientific value of looking into this is important. We'll make new discoveries one way or another, whether they're aliens or not.
Yeah, and you know what? That propulsion technology, man, if that can get you from L.A. to New York in 20 minutes, I'm on board. Alejandro, thank you so much. Always great to talk to you.
Thank you very much for having me.